Love, it has been good to me this time around. Things were bound to change when it was found. Sugar never tasted sweeter on my lips. My heart is now intact and I can find no rest.
Well, a very good afternoon to you, and welcome to Xandermonium, the talk show that gets you talking. I'm Xander Gibb, and coming up on today's show, I'll be breaking down the white-hot topics with my co-host, Tony Losacco, from The Full Story. More to come in a mere moment. So you can interact with us during the show in the chat room at the bottom of the show page. Keep scrolling down. Now, if it doesn't let you participate, you need to join with either Facebook or Twitter with one simple click. You can also call us on 347-884-9061. That's 347-884-9061. That's either the Skype number or the telephone number. It's the same for both, so you can contact us via that, or you can tweet us. My Twitter handle is at Xander Gibb, XanderGibb, capital X, capital G. And you can tweet Tony at Full Story 2014. That's FULLSTORY 2014. Tweet me if you're too shy, and I will make your point for you. Oh, yes, indeed, I will. And there's still time to vote in our poll over at XanderGibb.com. And this week's question is, should there be a tightening on gun control, and should loopholes be closed so those on watch list cannot purchase weapons? Or you can give us a call on this or any subject, or actually absolutely everything you want to get off your chest. 347-884-9061. That's 347-884-9061. Now, today's show is dedicated to the life and memory of my childhood friend, Lisa Dix, sending out my condolences to her family today. May she rest in peace and rise in glory. Make sure to save me a seat. So please join me in welcoming for today my co-host, broadcaster, writer, and now even TV presenter, the one, the only, the fabulous Mr. Tony Losacco. Welcome back to the show, Tony. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Jan.
Good. It's great to have you. How's your week been? Hello?
Hello?
We seem to be having some problems. Are you on a speakerphone or something? Or
I had to hear you. Let me call you back in 1 minute. I'm having phone difficulties. I apologize.
No problem,
Xander.
Tony. It's absolutely fine. I'm gonna do some intros for the next bit while you call back in. All right, thanks.
Okay, I apologize.
No problem, no problem. The wonders of modern technology, it doesn't always work. Hello to everybody in the chat. Hello to Kathy. Welcome to the show. So the first topic we're actually gonna tackle today, if I can find my teleprompter, is the recent issues in California. So last Wednesday, Saeed Farouk, 28, and his 29-year-old Pakistani wife, Tashfeen Malik, who slaughtered 14 people, mainly Jews, and wounded 21 others at a year-end office party. Now, there's been great debate as to whether the incident should be classified as, yes, I'm going to say it, as clearly President Obama seems to have an aversion to uttering these words, Islamic terrorism. Now, despite mounting signs of the couple's radicalization, there is a lot of evidence that doesn't quite make sense. Now, attorneys representing Farouk's family urged the public and media to wait for specific evidence before jumping to conclusions. They said none of his relatives had any indication either Farouk or his wife held extremist views. Now, of course, everybody has an arsenal of weaponry and rocket launchers in their spare room, right? Wrong. Now, Farouk and Malik rented a townhouse where investigators said they found an arsenal of ammunition and homemade bombs and rocket launchers. On Friday morning, the property's owner allowed reporters inside in an unusual scene broadcast live on cable TV. Now, until Friday, federal and local law enforcement officials said terrorism was a possibility, but that the violence could have stemmed from a workplace grudge. Well, to be honest, I often get pissed off with my coworkers, but the last thing I would think of doing is going and shooting them with automatic weapons. Now, attorneys for Farouk's family urge the public not to rush to judgment. If the most evidence there is to affiliation is a Facebook account under another person's name, then that's hardly anything at all, the attorney David Chesley said recently. That the couple's orphaned a 6-month-old daughter is in the care of Child Protective Services, and the family will try to recover her next week. Farouk had no criminal record, and neither did his wife, but was under scrutiny by local federal law enforcement before the attack, authorities said. Malik, 27, was a Pakistani who grew up in Saudi Arabia and came to the U.S. in 2014 on a fiancé visa. Farouk, a 28-year-old restaurant health inspector for the county, was born in Chicago to Pakistani parents and raised in Southern California. Now, law enforcement officials have long warned that Americans acting in sympathy with Islamic extremists, though not on direct orders, could launch an attack inside the U.S. using slick propaganda under the Islamic State in particular, has urged sympathizers worldwide to commit violence in their countries. Now, let me see if Tony is back. Yes, he is. Hi, Tony. Welcome back.
Thank you, Xander. Sorry about that.
No problem. So I don't know how much of what you how much you heard of my intro to this first segment, but what is your first reaction to the attacks on Wednesday, and should they be classified as Islamic terrorism?
Oh, this workplace violence thing. When I mean, it's a terrible thing. This work. I don't know about you, but when I get mad at my coworkers, I go on radical websites to declare my allegiance to ISIS. It's the first thought that comes into my head. I'm mad at my coworkers, or I'm a lunatic, so I'm going to go on radical websites, spend more money than my salary to build up an arsenal of bombs and weapons, and then declare my allegiance to ISIS and plan out an assault on my coworkers. That takes absolutely. Workplace violence. What a tragedy.
So there you go, Lewis. My coworker Lewis, who listens to this show, just be careful, because if you piss me off next week, no, I'm just joking. Obviously, it really is not the way to go. But I want to kind of rewind with this, and I shared a meme this week about the fact that let me get this right. In France, when these things occurred, they were saying, "Pray for France." Prayer is the answer. The Islamic terrorists are to blame. I'm just trying to find it for the wording because my page closed. Here we go. Terrorist attack France. Pray for Paris. Facebook profile pictures. ISIS did it. Attack in the USA. Prayers don't work. No Facebook profile picture, and the guns did it. Why such a stark difference, do you think, Tony?
That's a very good question. I've seen that meme myself, and I wondered about it. I mean, I almost felt like changing my picture to like the American flag this time,
Right.
just to send the message. I mean, it goes back to the president and this administration not wanting to admit that we have a war going on with terrorism, and not being willing to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution or the American people. In contrast He wants to tear up the Second Amendment of the Constitution and our rights. And, I mean, I really believe it is a dereliction of duty on the part of the president that he's violated his oath of office at this point. When you cannot fight a war against a sworn enemy that's attacking your nation, there is a problem with that. You are not fit to hold that office. I'm sorry, but I don't see it any other way at this point. He's not fit for that office. He's not defending our country.
What you've only just worked that one out. But I have a couple of points to make about this. First of all, now, I would say that my politics are probably more conservative nowadays than they ever were. But still, I kind of like. I was very surprised and kind of saddened that Congress turned away the bill the other day to change the issue regarding background checks, and they refused to close this loophole where people that are on terror watch lists can still get guns. Now, there's one thing about having the Second Amendment, and I totally say that. Can't just take everybody's guns back because it leaves them vulnerable. And then the only guns that are out there are the ones that actually belong to the criminals, and we don't know how many of them there are out there. So I do see that point. However, both sides in this disagreement need to come together and get some consensus because here's the thing for me. Whilst these things are still happening and there are loopholes for people to legally get guns and to produce arsenals of weapons and do things like this, then it's not in line with what the Constitution had in mind as far as I'm concerned.
Now, see, Xander, we think alike, as scary as that is, because I had that same thought. When I heard the president today, I did say, my God, he's right on one thing. He called it in exactly what I would have said. Insanity was the word he used. It's insanity that we won't let somebody suspected of terrorism get on an airplane, but we deem them fit to own a gun.
Right.
I mean, that's crazy. He said it was insane. And you know what? I have to give the president right on that. That's insanity. For God's sakes, close that loophole, and if the Republican Congress votes against that, then they're just as guilty as him. I mean, this is crazy. But I do believe it is time to go to war with ISIS. I understand that these were not, like, directly, from what we know now, it wasn't directly ordered by ISIS or supported by ISIS. But obviously the inspiration was there, and obviously ISIS has the intention of attacking us. They've stated it flat out. It is time to commit ground troops and cut the head of the snake off. You cannot bomb and bomb and bomb. You are creating future terrorists and more enemies. You need to go in there with ground troops and take that territory back, and then you won't have a breeding ground for terrorists. It's
kind of very circular. It's kind of very circular, and there's this Buddhist ideology that says cruelty begets its offspring's war. Which basically says while we're still killing, we're still going to be killed. But the secondary point in all of this for me is kind of to do with my brain was just gone. I had 2 points. Yes, gun legislation needs to be increased. What was my second point? My second point was of contention was with regard to the fact that, whilst I did a segment on the TV show last night because several people accused me over the past few weeks of being racist and being anti-Muslim, which couldn't be further from the truth, because I'd said on recent shows and in articles that I felt that anybody coming into the country, we as a Christian nation, a nation that calls itself Christian, we should be giving charity to those that need it. However, in that process, I do feel that people should be vetted and kind of monitored properly. Now, this woman that came in, they couldn't even do it with this one woman who came in from Saudi. They didn't vet and monitor her properly. But people are going to be surprised at this, but in a way, I've had to take a step back with regards to this, because for me, I said this a few weeks ago to you, Tony. I don't want anything that comes out of my mouth to contribute towards the hatred and or harm of anybody else, regardless of who they pray to. But in a way, I see President Obama's point about not wanting to call it Islamic terror, because he doesn't want, my gosh, I nearly said fellow Muslims. He doesn't want Muslims that live in this country to be treated badly, because I don't know if you remember after 9/11, cab drivers were spat at and punched in the face because they were Muslim, because of the 9/11 terror attacks. I mean, is it just me, Tony, or do you have to be a stupid person to generalize to the point where you think, if I walk down the street today and an Irish guy punches me in the face, does that mean all Irishmen are violent? No, of course it doesn't. Isn't it just stupid people that generalize?
It is. And you know something? I saw a great meme on Facebook. I reshared it actually about that, with a pro-life guy saying, I feel bad, basically, they're labeling me an extremist now because of this idiot. And then a Muslim was coming right beside the guy with the pro-life saying, imagine how I feel. And it is true. We cannot generalize. Right. We cannot generalize Christians, even politically. We cannot generalize. There's some good liberals out there. There really are. They may not be very educated, but they're good-hearted. You cannot generalize anybody under race, religion, creed, ethnicity. You cannot generalize. That's the problem. I had that in my neighborhood.
Sexuality, anything.
Anything. I mean, I don't know if you recall, a year ago I was fighting with my local neighbors here because they're all older people. They wanted to make their 55 and older neighborhood because only crime is committed by the young people. If we just let 55 and older in only, we won't have crime no more. Well, there was just a 55-year-old arrested for molesting a little girl who was in the sheriff's department. See, this is what happens when you generalize, whether it's by age, race, religion, and it's totally absurd. But if I may, I'd like to make a few points of my own about the shooting incident, actually. Okay. I noticed some things here. And some things I noticed, and I don't have the answers as to why things played out this way, but I do want to point out there's a lot that stinks about the story. And when I say that, I want to distinguish myself. I do not wear a tinfoil hat. I'm not a big-time conspiracy theorist. I do follow some of the theories for entertainment purposes only. But there is a lot here that does not make sense. The first thing that caught me that the news media just is not following up on, it's like they're controlled, is that initial news conference. They said over and over again for hours, I'm sure we all watched it, or most of your listeners probably watched it, that they had no clue who did this. They didn't have a description. They didn't have a race. They didn't have a gender. They had black SUV. I'd be willing to, they didn't even have black SUV. They had dark-colored SUV. We have no idea who did this. 2 hours later, a tip on a suspect led them to the black SUV. How is that possible when they had no idea whether it was men, male, female, race, gender, no description, and they were admitting on TV that they didn't know anything about who did this? Did somebody call in a tip? Oh, by the way, I think that guy's a terrorist on the road. Stop him. Something does not make sense with that. And the media, if you notice, dropped the ball. They did not follow up. What tip? How? When you were on TV telling us you had no idea of anything who did this. Second thing that doesn't make sense. When have you known a crime scene ever in history for them to release a crime scene and let the media in to rampage through a house on a crime scene a few hours later?
Hardly
Never.
Ever.
Horrible. And some of my friends, this gets into a little bit of the conspiracy, pointed out that this is something that they said it fits the profile of terrorism. No, some of my friends pointed out rightly on Facebook, this fits something you would see in a movie. We've all seen the action movies and the spy movies where a hit team goes in and out and disappears. This fits more of that profile, like a professional hit job. So there's a lot not making sense about what we're being told.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying the government's behind it or anything, but there's far more to this story than they are letting on. I mean, I suspect that the way they caught those bad guys was that the NSA program that they told us isn't running anymore is still fully operational. I think that within an hour they plugged in their little connector pieces or computer programs and said, oh, we know where they're at. That's kind of what I suspect with that, but they can't tell us. But there's a lot that does not make sense with this story, and nobody is questioning it. Nobody is questioning, wait, how did they find the suspect an hour later when they had no suspect and no idea who did it? Nobody's questioning, why did they release the crime scene? This female woman that supposedly is the mastermind now, they didn't even have pictures of her. There's no identity, no biography, nothing.
Wait, did you just say this female woman? Aren't all women female?
Yes. This female Muslim woman, I'm sorry. This
right.
Female Muslim, no identity, no nothing. It just seems like there's a lot more to the story. Even Governor Brown, when he was on the press conference, I noticed he said something. He said, we'll do anything possible to keep Californians safe. And he looked scared. Now, that was after the two suspects were dead already. But he was talking in the present tense, like there was more to it, you know? Like,
right.
Okay, why are you going to do everything to keep California safe? Why are you so worried? The two suspects are dead. How did we go from 3 to 2? I mean, we heard it ourselves. You know, they were pursuing the third suspect. There's no third suspect, though, you know? So there's a lot that doesn't make sense. And I'm just asking people, ask some questions, because the media is not questioning anything. Something is more to the story.
I definitely think that the media only puts out there what they want us to know. And you know, I said this last night on the TV show. I don't care who you are, all media is biased, whatever media it is. And there are very few news outlets that will that will actually tell you how it exactly is. They put opinion over and kind of put it out there as, sorry, I'm trying to read the chat and talk as well. And they put it out there as fact. I mean, when are people, you know, this is what really started me off doing the show, that I had to question what was going on, because there were so many different versions of events, and it really makes you have to look at several sources to find out exactly what is going on. But I want to
absolutely.
Go on.
I was just going to say, CNN outraged me this morning, actually. CNN's coverage is very, very biased, and they're calling it a mass shooting. A mass shooting. And I'm like, you can't bring your word yourselves as a news network when the FBI has said it's a terrorist attack. All this morning, CNN was saying the mass shooting, the mass shooting. I'm like, how partial and how biased is that?
Right. Who was it that said workplace violence first? Was that President Obama? Because that just made me like.
Yes.
That just kind of made my blood boil a little, because you know, workplace violence is me punching my colleague in the face, not shooting him and everybody else.
Some of the media outlets went to far lengths to apologize and put the workplace violent. I read one story on legitimate news sites being reposted that said that the reason for the attack was because they served pork at the Christmas party. And they were putting this out there as factual information, that it was a workplace incident because the Muslim was enraged that they served pork there.
Are you kidding me?
Like, no, I'm not. This was all over some news outlets.
Wow. I mean, it certainly, you know, I kind of keep coming back to this because, you know, I was actually talking to a friend of mine who happens to be Muslim recently, and he was saying to me, you know, this is not, you know, you've seen this not in my name campaign. You know, all these, he's saying to me that it's kind of disgusting that people are saying, hey, I'm a Muslim, and hey, I'm killing people, because what that does is causes anti-Muslim sentiment for all Muslims. Now, he basically said that that he wonders if there's method in the madness of this, and whether some of it is actually designed to create anti-Muslim sentiment. Now, do you think, I'm not saying that is a possibility, but I thought it was an interesting concept.
That is interesting. I mean, I was taken aback by a lot of the spin that was put on this incident by everybody. The Daily News, oh my gosh, I don't even want to go there with those front page covers that they had about God not saving us in prayer and this. I'm like, what does A have to do with B? I mean, I thought as a human being, I was outraged at those two covers on the Daily News, and people were applauding them as great journalism. I'm like, this is an opinion post. It's not front page news.
Right. Yes, exactly. But, this is my answer to that. I had a very difficult time spiritually after the Sandy Hook elementary shootings 3 years ago. The people even said then that was staged and that was set up, and that no one really died, et cetera, et cetera. But that really gave me a crisis of faith. But, here's the thing, and I prayed long and hard about this, and I think that when God gave man free will, that was exactly that. And some people say God doesn't exist because if he did, he wouldn't interfere. But can we have it both ways? Can we have free will and have God intervening all the time? And that gave me a little bit of peace, but obviously it was still, very difficult. I mean, what do people actually expect God to do?
To nail right on the head there, Xander. I mean, it's free will or zombie robots. It's that simple. If God stops evil, then there's no free will, and then we don't have free choice. And that's partly I explain that about libertarianism to people all the time. I often get asked, well, how can you be a libertarian and a Christian? Don't you want to help people? Yes, I want to help people, but I believe God's greatest gift to humanity is freedom. It's the first thing he gave us, the free choice, just by telling Adam, don't eat the apple. Not saying there was an apple or not, but metaphorically speaking, just by giving Adam the choice. God's first gift to humanity was freedom. It's the greatest of all human things, freedom.
Exactly. So I want to, because we could probably talk about this all day, but I want to kind of draw a bit of a line under this before we move on, and drawing a line is kind of a very interesting point. Now, where do we draw the line, Tony, between saying it how it is and creating anti-Muslim sentiment? Because that is really the last thing I want to do. I mean, these people that have committed these atrocities, are bastards and are going to hell. Excuse my French, but I don't lump those people that have done these things in the same category of your average Muslim that might live up the road from you and wants to work, take care of their kids, and pay their taxes. All right, maybe not the latter, who wants to pay their taxes, of course. Well, I do if there's anyone listening from the IRS, but you get my point. So where do we draw the line, Tony, between those two things?
I think, honestly, it's a very delicate balance, and I'm probably going to make a lot of enemies by saying this, and I've said it about, before in their profiling. You have to profile to an extent, okay?
Right.
If the Muslim guy that attends the mosque every Sunday is getting packages delivered to his home every day, I'm calling the FBI, okay? Now, if my white Irish neighbor who attends church with me is doing that, I'm not calling the FBI. You can say that that's unfair, that that's evil, that's stereotyping, but you can't ignore reality, okay? That doesn't mean that you do what Donald Trump said and you create a database of all Muslims nationwide.
Right.
And we go back to the times of Nazi Germany and see that's the distinction you have to make. But when you do have to look at certain groups more carefully. If I'm in law enforcement, I'm going to look at libertarians more carefully because they're anti-government. Wait,
did you just draw a comparison between Adolf Hitler and Donald Trump?
Donald Trump is a fascist. He is not a conservative. And you heard it first. You heard it first on your show from the full story from Tony. I said that weeks ago, if you recall. Now, guess what? A lot of the conservative Republican commentators, guess what they're saying Donald Trump is? A fascist. And I got a lot of flack when I said he was a fascist. But now people are calling it for what it is, fascism.
Let me just share these facts with you that I stole from the fabulous Brigitte Gabriel, who's the founder and president for Act for America. Right. So there are 1.2 billion Muslims in the world, the majority of which are like you and I, peaceful people. The radicals are estimated to be between 15 and 25%, according to all intelligence services around the world. So that means 75% are peaceful people. 15 to 25% of the whole Muslim population is 180 to 300 million people dedicated to the destruction of Western civilization. It's the radicals that kill, it's the radicals who behead and massacre, and the radicals that fly planes into buildings. Now, most Germans were peaceful people, but the Nazis drove the agenda, and as a result of that, 6 million people died. Now, the peaceful majority are irrelevant. And in these situations, the peaceful majority are irrelevant in these situations. And on September 11th, there were 2.3 million Arab Muslims living in the United States. It took just 19 hijackers, 19 radicals to bring America to its knees and blow up the World Trade Center and attack the Pentagon and kill all of those American people that day. So let's learn a lesson from history. I don't want anybody to treat anybody badly, and I don't want anybody to come away from listening to this segment with anti-Muslim sentiment. But you know, Tony, I'm paraphrasing now exactly what you said. But if you say something, say something. And if you offend somebody along the way and you're wrong, then just apologize. Because isn't it better to be safe than sorry?
It is. I mean, and you know, a lot of it goes, to clarify my response earlier, a lot of it goes to suspicion. You know, if it's Christmas time and the kid that goes to high school around the corner from me is getting a bunch of packages at their house, I'm not going to be suspicious. But if my neighbor's a kid that goes to high school that always wears black and all that stuff, and he's suddenly getting packages from Hardware and Home Depot and stuff, you know what? I might call the local sheriff's office. I'm not stereotyping, oh, that's a kid, but yeah, there's a reasonable suspicion, oh, what if he's up to something? You let law enforcement do their job and investigate. That's what they're there for. But we can't be so afraid of being politically correct that we do not report these things.
But
because
you know what,
this could have been prevented. This
In-
could have been
in all
prevented.
fairness,
That's what nobody's talking about. This could have been
political
prevented.
correctness is what got us into this situation. Political correctness is what got us into this situation. America is built on immigration. It's built on people coming in from other countries, and I totally and fully accept that. But when you integrate into a society, integration is actually all about fitting in and becoming a part of that infrastructure, not about taking your ideologies and trying to foist them on other people. Whether you happen to be a Christian or a Muslim or a Jehovah's Witness, if you come and live in this country, fair enough, practice your religion, but don't try to take over.
And I actually, as much as I can't stand Donald Trump, some of what he says from a national security perspective makes sense. And this is where I conflict with the Libertarian Party, actually. Safety and security are a priority. For example, you know, I really feel you asked about reasonable things. Let's say I've got a Muslim friend, right? And we're in a conversation at the mall, and they're at their booth selling things because that's where they are working at the time or whatever. And we're talking about the latest terrorist incident. And that Muslim guy, I know he attends mosque, and he's a very devout Muslim, and he says, oh, well, that's a shame what happened, but I could see where he was coming from. Just a simple statement like that. You know what? They should be on a watch list because if you have sympathy for somebody like that, you should be being watched. And there are a lot of Muslims in this country. Trump was right when he said some of them were celebrating 9/11. It was proven.
Right.
He had his defenders come out and state the facts. No, I saw it. This is verified.
But not,
there are people that sympathize.
Tony, let me just point out for you. The danger of that statement is, yes, it's correct. There were some. But what most people will hear from that is that all Muslims were excited about 9/11. And that is a worry.
No, but this is where the balance comes in. You have to separate the good from the bad, but you cannot be afraid to act. If somebody's on ISIS websites, for instance, and they're not doing it for a media project or a school project, and they're on-site posting or being sympathetic, they should be watched. That's simple. I mean, we need to not be afraid to basically watch, surveil, and if necessary, arrest, and I'll go as far as intern people that are sympathetic to this radical extremism. It's that simple. It's a matter of life and death. So you have to have some gives. And I think that's one of the important things that we need to realize as a nation. You can't be politically correct and say, oh, well, the guy's got a First Amendment right to say ISIS might be right on some things. Okay, well, then in 6 months from now, that same guy could be blowing up your next building.
Right. And the thing is, though, Tony, and I was thinking about this today. If you're not with us, then you're against us. If you cannot support the United States, if you can't, this slogan came to me earlier. If you can't support the United States, then go and live in an Islamic state.
That is true. And, that holds true for a lot of things, for that matter. There are a lot of non-Muslim people who hate this country, whether it's the right-wing conspiracy theorist, the racist, or whatever. And my thing is, look, if you don't like it, leave. It's that simple.
Right.
If you don't like our nation or the anti-gay activists, those are cream of the crop.
Let's not go there today, Tony. They've already revoked my fag badge. You know that, don't you?
Oh, really?
I'm no longer allowed at the meetings.
You're no longer allowed at the meeting.
I want to kind of. I don't really want to go to the meetings, but I want to move on to our next segment while we've got some time, because I think this is something that's very interesting. Now, a 12-year-old British schoolboy who was trying to save his local youth group was called from his class after his plan to protest outside Prime Minister David Cameron's constituency office was spotted by, are you ready for this, anti-terror police. Now, in this enormous overreaction, 12-year-old Nicky Wishart was warned that he faced arrest. He said, I couldn't believe it. The policeman asked me lots of questions about why we were having a protest and who would be there. He said, it was simply because we didn't want our youth center to close. It's a fantastic place to go, and there isn't much else for us to do around here. The full-scale security operation, talk about waste of taxpayers' money, kicked in days after Nicky made an innocent Facebook request to save his youth center. He was surprised to be told by police that they were now monitoring his Facebook posts, which are mainly gossip and banter from school about lessons and friends and haircuts and the usual things that 12-year-old boys talk about, and that he would be responsible for any trouble at the well-mannered picket on Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
So the young boy said, all this is because Mr. Cameron is our local MP, and it's a bit embarrassing for him. The policeman asked if he was sure his mom wanted him to go out protesting that night in what Nicky thought was an attempt to scare him off. But there was no way he wasn't going to go. Now, at Friday's hour-long demonstration, he, his sister Beth, and a dozen friends waved homemade placards outside the Prime Minister's office in Whitney, accompanied by 2 youth workers. The picket was watched by 4 police officers on the other side of the street, and 2 more officers were nearby. A spokesman said this was not to dissuade the protest, but to obtain information and to ensure the safety of others. Now, let's start with this, Tony. So what this means is now that people cannot make commentary about things they disagree with for fear of being on watch lists. Now, I'm sure you and I are on watch lists, no doubt about it. What's your first
Xander,
response?
My first response, I want to point out we had a similar incident in the United States this week, actually, and it didn't get as much coverage. I knew you were going to bring up the British thing. This just happened in the United States. A man was distributing literature outside a courthouse, and he was he was on the sidewalk, perfectly within his First Amendment rights. He was distributing literature on jury nullification and the right of the jury to nullify a verdict if they did not agree with the law. And he was ordered under arrest by the judge, and he's on $150,000 bail and faces, I think it's 10 years in prison.
Wow.
For the judge said, well, that's jury tampering, that's interfering with, they built up trumped up charges.
How is it jury tampering?
The man was simply publishing leaflets on a right of people, which is jury nullification, and distributing information. So both cases, it's the same thing, where the First Amendment in England was trampled on, and they picked on a poor boy who was trying to save his youth center, and in America, a civil rights activist, basically, who was just trying to tell people, look, this is what a jury can and can't do. I mean, when we go after our own people who are within the law and attack their freedoms, but we won't go after the bad guys, there's a problem.
Well, I mean, it's certainly a worry, but I kind of think this kind of stuff is going to be on the rise. I mean, this is, when I read this, I thought, doesn't this happen in non-civilized countries? That I know, and I'm not going to mention which country. A friend of mine lived in an Arab country, and someone came into his place of business and basically said, if you don't give me money, I'm going to report you to the government. So he said, F your government. And you know what? Within 3 weeks, he was taken away. He was beaten. He had things inserted into his body as a form of torture, all because he said, F your government. I mean, imagine if that happened here. If you could not disagree and you could not have your First Amendment right, I'm right, isn't it? The First Amendment, free speech, yes. If you didn't have that right to do that and they put you in prison for it.
Wow, I just got a vision of what a Trump presidency would look like.
Oh, Joan, that is very scary. That really is very scary, because I think he would be the kind of person to do it, because he's already. Let's just give you an example. I know you know that Rosie O'Donnell is a friend of mine, so I'm going to use this example because I don't think she would mind. Look how he responded to her for disagreeing. He called her fat. He called her ugly. He said she was a dykey tramp. He said that her girlfriend, her wife, should leave her. I mean, just look how he reacted to her for having a disagreement. So how would he be towards other people?
Exactly. I mean, and, the rallies, some of the protesters were beaten, and he justified it, You just have to look at this man to realize what his agenda is about. And it's tough because he's almost at 50% of the polls now, and it looks like there's a very real possibility that Donald Trump could be the next president of the United States.
Oh, please don't even say it, because I'll be going back to England, really. I mean, I can't. I mean, I
train Obama for a third term.
No, I wouldn't go. I definitely wouldn't go that far. I really wouldn't. But I mean, this is the worrying thing. I've had this theory for a long time that Trump is being paid to run, because I think that him just announcing that he's running will cause lots of issues, and it will either push everybody towards Ted Cruz, or it will push everybody towards Hillary Clinton. And I definitely think it's been a payoff from the beginning.
I think it's a payoff from the beginning, too. I hold a slightly different version of that. I think he's in there at the request of Bush. Bush doesn't need to worry about being at 1% because he's got enough money to last a full another year of the campaign. All Trump has to do is knock Jeb, right. All right. Trump has to do is knock all the others out, and then Bush comes out from behind. He's still got money. He's the only anti-Trump candidate left. Suddenly nobody cares that he's a Bush. Oh, well, we've got to vote for Jeb. We don't want Trump. Trump's a radical.
That's really interesting because we've never discussed this, have we, Tony? We've never.
No, but that's been my theory from the beginning on that actually it's a setup to make Bush get that nomination, actually. And let's not forget the Bushes and Clintons are friends. People don't like to talk about it, but Clinton's like an adopted son to the old man Bush, to the first Bush.
Yeah, of course. But you know, behind closed doors, and you know, I have friends that are senators, and one particular friend again who I won't name, but he told me that behind closed doors they're all pally, they're all good friends, and all of the politicizing is done for the cameras. And so it's all farcical, and we as the general public, we get brought into it. It's like watching a soap opera almost, you know.
It is. Now I do want to point out, going back a little bit in history though, let's go back to the Bill Clinton presidency. Okay? Bill Clinton's second term was very different than his first term. He had an all-Republican Congress. Clinton compromised. He passed welfare reform and a lot of undemocratic, unquote, liberal democratic things. Clinton compromised when he realized, hey, I have to work with these people. And he didn't push his own agenda. He went and he sought compromise, and they got some things done. Obama has been the most divisive president that I have seen in my lifetime. I mean, he has done nothing but divide and insist on his agenda no matter what. The terrorism thing's the latest example. They wanted so badly that they opened any door they could to try to say it was workplace violence, you know, because that's his preconceived agenda. He doesn't want to admit that we were attacked on American soil because it caused him to agree with the Republicans on some things, on going after ISIS, for instance, or something. So the contrast between him and the last Democratic president is just night and day. I mean, the last president, Bill Clinton, compromised and led. This man does not lead. He divides, and he divides.
Well, even just his kind of, you know, to say that he's an African American, what has he actually done to bring the community together? I mean, he's kind of people talk about what's his name, Candy Floss Hair from Harlem. What's his name? Gosh, his name escapes me. You know what I'm talking about?
Sharpton, you mean?
Sharpton, yes, Al Sharpton. Apologies for calling him Candy Floss Hair from Harlem, but that's kind of how he comes up in my brain space. But you know, people say stuff about him, but let's face it, Obama is just as bad, if not worse.
Absolutely. I mean, even with the terrorism, his latest address this morning was still focusing on gun control. And I happen to agree with him on the gun control thing like you do. We do need gun control reform. But instead of talking about going after ISIS and the enemy and what we're going to do to fight terrorism, he turns it into a gun control debate. The man does not lead. Don't understand it. The only thing that I can think of at this point is what nobody wants to talk about, which is, did we create ISIS to get rid of Assad? Those weapons were smuggled from Libya. We had that massacre. There was CIA covert ops, and then all of a sudden ISIS comes around. We, as in the United States, do we not really want to get ISIS? Because is ISIS really created by the CIA, and do we not want that to come out? That's really what just like we created Al-Qaeda with the Mujahideen under Reagan to fight the Soviets, did we create ISIS and fund and support them? And then did they stab us in the back, and now we can't attack them because we know they'll spill the beans? Oh, we got our weapons, our funding, and our money from your CIA.
Right. Yeah. A friend of mine who is Syrian has all the way through blamed America for this, and I kind of think it's a concern, but the ideology of the fact that why did we know that certain countries had weapons of mass destruction? Because we sold them the damn components in the 80s.
Well, and see, I don't understand a simple military thing, okay? Even from, let's take a law enforcement perspective, right? You're a drug enforcement agent, right? You're in charge of the DEA, right? Okay, so there's drugs all over the city. You find the main drug lab. That's where they're sending the dealers from. That's their base of operations. What are you going to do? You're going to raid that base of operations, right? You understand that, they're spread out throughout the city. There's a whole network of drug dealers from this gang, but you realize, oh, wait, that's the main base. We need to cut it off at its head and get rid of it. Militarily, ISIS, that of land between Iraq and Syria is where they conduct their operations from. Why would you not go in and invade that and take it out with ground troops? What are you so afraid of? It makes no sense. So now if I disappear suddenly, then you know what happened to me, because I'm just alleging that ISIS was created by the CIA.
Well, to be honest, Tony, my first thought would be that it would be to do with Kiko, but the government would come into it secondarily. But here's the thing for me, Tony. I despair, because obviously we do what we do because we want the country to be a better place. But it seems to me that whoever is in power seems to be corrupted or corruptible, even if it's just with reference to their own agendas.
Well, let me ask you a question, Xander. Maybe you can answer this for me, or your viewers, or anybody in the chat room
not math,
is welcome to answer. No, it's not math. Why have we not gone in there with ground troops to take back that territory and get rid of the nation, quote, of ISIS that they've declared? Why would we not go in there with our full army's capacity, as we did in Iraq, as we've done in so many other places? Why would we not go in, invade, take back that landmass, and say there's no more nation of ISIS? What is the reason?
Wait. What about a word springs to mind, a three-letter word, and it's why we went into Afghanistan and Iraq, and the word is oil. Could that be anything to do with it?
Well, Putnam's alleging that, actually.
Putin,
the president of Russia, yes, who you are no fan of, I understand, but he has alleged in the media that the reason that we do not stop ISIS is we're in with Turkey on the free, cheap oil, and that we get our oil smuggled from ISIS. Have you looked at the price of gas lately, though? Consistently gone down since this ISIS thing.
Has.
You have to wonder and question these things. The president of Russia has basically said Turkey's smuggling black market oil from ISIS, and that's why they won't attack them. He said it to the world. And then there's a small step between that and is Turkey doing it, or we in Turkey doing it to keep down our oil prices and kind of get rid of OPEC?
But you know what? Obama is so weak. He's got Putin's he's got Putin's footprints on his butt. That guy gets his butt kicked all the time. America is seen as so weak in the world right now, and it would never been like this under Reagan. Reagan was much tougher. Reagan would have said right away, "Let's get in there and kill them. Let's get them gone. If they're threatening to kill us, then let's kill them." I mean, I don't like the idea of killing anybody, Tony, to be honest. There are always civilian casualties. And I do see the point that people are making on social media about, oh, my God, what about the civilian casualties and things like that? And I do kind of see that point. But what about the American civilian casualties?
That's exactly it. And there would be less casualties, civilian casualties, I honestly believe, from a ground invasion. because it's ground troops. We're creating more civilian. Everybody thinks smart bomb. The bomb doesn't distinguish between the terrorists and everybody within that radius. It kills innocent people.
Smart,
we just don't see it. No, it's not that smart. I mean, they like to use these terms: smart bomb, collateral damage. What it means is innocent women, children, babies, and people are getting blown to bits in their own homes, who have nothing to do with terrorism. Whereas if you launch a real attack and a real ground army and take back that territory, yes, young Americans are going to come back in body bags. We know that already. But it's necessary to secure our safety. And I don't understand. This fits every definition of war. There's a hostile nation.
So in a way, one might understand, I'm not saying it makes it right, but in a way, one would understand why there is anti-American sentiment in this situation.
I personally believe that we're creating more enemies by just bombing. We're creating the future ISIS than if we went in there with ground troops. And I've heard some Muslims say this on Facebook, actually. When France began bombing in Russia, it was France and Russia indiscriminately, but some Muslims were outraged and they were calling them cowards and terrorists. And they said, why don't you fight us like real men and come in with your army? See, that's the animosity these bombs are creating. You know, we're sending drones and computerized things to drop bombs on places, but we won't send men with guns to secure that land and take it back and kill ISIS. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. I don't understand.
But you know, I think the problem is just so vast, and it's got so vast now that the only, I hate to say it, but you know, the only thing is, the only way to deal with it is boots on the ground, as they say, and it's a concern because yes, more American lives will be lost, American soldiers will be killed, but you know, it's all right, people. What price safety? That's the point I'm making. You know.
Furthermore, let's go back on history to history's lessons. Roosevelt and Stalin were not friends, to say the least, you know? But he allied with Stalin. The enemy of my enemy is your friend. You could fight Russia all you want and expand NATO all you want afterwards. But for God's sakes, commit with Putnam and say, look,
Putin.
Let's go in together. Putnam. I got some homework tonight.
Putin.
I'm going to say that while I'm on the bowl tonight, over and over again. Putin. Putin, while I'm dropping some bombs of my own. Putin.
Moving swiftly on.
Yes, moving swiftly on. Why not ally with Putin and do that at this point in time and say, okay, you come in from the east, we come in from the west, et cetera, et cetera. Let's occupy it. Let's take it back. For God's sakes, if I was president, I'd be cutting a backdoor deal with the president of Russia saying, we want to saw it out. We want to save face. You want your base and your oil there. We understand. Who do you want to replace him? You can handpick the dictator that replaces him. We'll just get rid of Assad, put your guy in there, but you go in there with us and you secure that area, that whole ISIS area, and take it out. France and the rest of the world will be with it. We really need to have an international force go in there and take out ISIS. Problem solved.
Absolutely. Well, time has sadly caught up with us, Tony, as it always tends to. Tell people where they can find you on social media and what you're up to.
You can find me on social media on YouTube at The Full Story, and you can find me also on Facebook at The Full Story. I have a Facebook page and a YouTube channel. I hope 2 different videos by the end of the week. One on terrorism and what we've discussed today, and actually both on topics we discussed today, and the other on the freedom of speech and how both in England and in the United States they're limiting freedom of speech. Because both topics are very important. I mean, we're facing a huge national security issue where we're waiting on the next 9/11. Something has to be done. And also, at the same time, the government's taking away our First Amendment rights. Something has to be done. So I'm hoping to get some videos posted on both topics.
Well, I hope you'll send one of them to me so we can use them once again in the TV show. But make sure you tell people your name and stuff before you go into your tirade, so people know exactly who you are. So listen, Tony, thanks so much for joining us today. Have a great week, and I hope you'll come back to us very soon. And please give our love to Kiko.
Thank you, Xander. Have a good day.
Thanks, Tony. You too. That was the fabulous Tony Losacco. Please make sure you check him out on social media. You can find him. Look at the event listing for today. Look for the full story, and you will find him there. Thank you to everybody who's been involved in today's show. Thank you to everybody in chat. Thanks to Kathy. Thanks to Joe. Thanks to all the guests. Don't forget to check out episode 2.8 of my TV talk show, Xandermonium, Fridays on channel 192 on Charter and simulcast on XanderGibb.com. Also featuring London Calling TV show with the fabulous Jeff Christian and crew. Make sure you do check that out, and afterwards you'll be able to find it on YouTube. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Make sure to stay safe out there, and we will see you all again next time here on Xandermonium, the talk show that does indeed get you talking. I love you all. Bye-bye.